Welcome to Somebody You Love, or The Sale of Two Titties. I'm Jenna Love.
And I'm Holly Hart.
And we're experts in disappointing our parents, breaching community guidelines, and banging the people who vote against our rights. Before we get into things, we'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are recording today. So I'm on Darug and Gundungurra land.
And I'm on the land of the Ngunnawal people. We'd like to pay our respects to any elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. We also want to make it clear up front that we can only speak from our own experiences.
Yeah, the sex working community is incredibly diverse, which is one of the best things about it, I think. But as white cis women, we have a lot of privileges within the industry, and we're simply not able to speak to the stigma and the discrimination that is faced by our peers who find themselves really in those intersections of the margins.
We will obviously be discussing adult topics, so this podcast may not be suitable for those under the age of 18.
And also, neither of us is the type to shy away from difficult subjects, so we'll likely cover some sensitive stuff as well, but we will do our best to warn you in those situations.
So, Jenna, does the world need two more white women talking about themselves and laughing at their own jokes?
No. No. But I think we need it. We're millennials. I feel like it is a rite of passage, a coming of age experience for the millennial.
Yeah, it's very on trend as well, and we're just trying to keep up with these modern trends, you know.
We're getting old.
We are getting old. We've got to keep young somehow. It is our hope, though, that if anyone other than our mums listens to this podcast...
Although we do kind of hope our mums don't listen to it, I think.
Really hope she doesn't. Yeah,
I bet you mine does. Honestly... She's
joy.
So keen for it. Yeah.
Lucky you. That eventually we can use it as a platform to share the voices that represent the diversity of the community in which we are, the sex work community.
But then I guess if no one does listen to it, then it will just be you and me sitting here talking to each other for no reason, which is pretty much exactly what we do now all the time.
Yeah, standard.
So,
Let's,
no change.
We can roll with that, yeah.
Yeah,
all right.
I can work with that. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We thought it made sense in our first episode that we tell you the origin story of the podcast. But first, it might be helpful for you to know who we are. Now, while we're assuming that most people listening to this already know who we are and are just like our friends, we hope maybe there's a couple of you out there who are listening who have no idea who we are. So we shall explain. Holly and I'm Jenna, are both full-service sex workers in Australia. So the term full service basically means that we do the sex.
We do the sex.
We do the sex. We also do a hell of a lot of other things, and sex isn't necessarily always a part of what we do. We'll talk about that much more as the podcast continues. But basically, full service means the doing of the sexing.
Excellent. I'm Holly. I live and work in Canberra, only Canberra. I do not tour. Canberra is the nation's capital. I have experience working as a stripper in brothels, and for about the past 5 or 6 years, I've been a completely independent private escort.
And you worked reception in brothels as well?
I've done it all. I've done reception in brothels, management in strip clubs. I've done a little bit of everything. I've always been interested in the sex industry, so I've done a lot of sex industry adjacent work, or sex work adjacent, stuff inching my way towards my dream.
I haven't done any of that sort of stuff. So
you just jumped straight into it though, whereas, I sort of danced around it for years going, can I?
Dance being the operative word.
A pun?
Ooh, a bit of a
first pun.
Not really, it's just des. Oh, we've done it. We've made our first pun.
Oh, God.
Oh, shit, we haven't even got into the body of the podcast. Well, I live in the Blue Mountains, which is west of Sydney. I work at home. I also tour and work in different cities around the country. I've worked in brothels a couple of times briefly, but now I only work independently. On top of the full-service sex work, I also do online sex work. So I'm a content creator, which is the 2020's way of saying basically I make and sell my own porn.
Woohoo! That's something I haven't done yet being the operative word.
Ooh,
Who knows? Who knows?
Oh, that's exciting.
Oh,
okay.
no.
Okay.
Don't
Cool.
get anyone's hopes up or fears up. I live with my 3 cats and a dog. It is a zoo. I have gone one cat too far. I'm self-confessed accidental animal hoarder. I love them.
It's only because the final cat you got is a bit of a situation.
He is a real jerk. I love him to pieces, obviously, and I would never part with him. But yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. But yeah, it's a good life. And you, Jenna, what's your living situation?
Yeah. Well, I live with my husband, who's currently half a metre away from me. And actually, we just celebrated our 12th anniversary on the weekend.
Ooh,
so that's a bit cute.
Yay.
Oh, thank you. We just sat on the couch and ate takeout.
True
It was
romance.
fab. Yeah, that's it. And we live with our cat, just the one for now. Again, for now.
For now. I'm hopeful,
yeah.
always hopeful.
Yeah, always. I'm also polyamorous, and I assume that will come up in the future. I'm
It
sure.
will. Fascinating. We're both in our early 30s, use the pronouns she and her, and are pansexual.
Yeah, samesies.
Samesies, twins.
Samesies. We do have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a Patreon, and our name in all of those places is Somebody You Pod, which is because Somebody You Love wasn't available in all of them, and I went for consistency. It's a bit weird. I don't know what Somebody You Pod means. It sounds like some kind of move or I don't know.
I like it.
Maybe it's like a euphemism.
I love the consistency.
It is what it is. That's what I'm all about. Our Patreon starts at $3 a month, $3 Australian per month. And at this point, we've just set that up because we're looking to cover the costs that are associated with starting up a podcast. But who knows where we will go with that.
I think that's about all you need to know for intros. Let's actually move on to starting the show.
Finally, let's do it.
Woohoo!
Okay, so quite a while ago now, would have been early 2020, I was approached by BuzzFeed Australia to do some video interviews with them. They were putting together these 2 videos. One was Never Have I Ever with sex workers, and one was something like questions you've always wanted to ask sex workers or whatever. And it was just covering, the standard questions we always get a million times. So the videos were just featured me, Charlie Ford, and Violet Devine, so 3 Aussie sex workers. They were good little videos. I thought we'll pop them in the show notes so you can have a look if you want.
Yeah, I love
you
them.
don't have to, but yeah, there's some laughs in there and some dogs, which is always good. But a friend of mine pointed out to me that they had been shared on Facebook, which I didn't realize. I thought BuzzFeed had only shared them on YouTube. Usually Facebook is pretty about sex work stuff, so I just didn't think they would have been shared there. But my friend pointed out that they had been and that there were thousands of comments on them, and I had no idea. So we were out at the pub and I was like, oh my God, I have to go home. I need to go read all of these comments. And I went home and I read not all of them because there were so many, but a few of the comments, and it was wild. It was out of control. You are one
brave woman.
Oof. Yeah, look.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think this is the thing, like being a sex worker on the internet, we deal with so much crap.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not necessarily complaining about that, but that's just the reality of being open as a sex worker on the internet. And there's kind of different environments we face. So if you go onto Twitter, for instance, there's a lot of the sex industry is on Twitter, which is basically, I think, just because nipples are allowed there.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes.
So we're like, well, we have the nipples.
Here's our place to show them.
End up there. This is where they are. Yeah. So that can be a fairly sex work friendly space, but being the nature of Twitter is that people only have a certain amount of characters to write what they're thinking. So there's always arguments and explosions and blah, blah, blah. So that can be a really like hostile space. But at the same time, there's a lot of like sex industry support.
Definitely.
Then you go say onto Reddit, which is from the Australian perspective, it's very kind of Americanized. It's not very supportive of sex work. It tends to be very human trafficking, blah, 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 conflating, consensual sex work with human trafficking, which is a whole episode that I want to dive into.
That's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, but wherever you go on the internet, you're going to get like a different type of person that you're combating.
You get
with,
different demographics, you get different interests, different overlaps, and different battles.
And because yes, exactly. Yeah. And because Facebook is quite anti anything related to sex or anything, I sort of hadn't had the battle with that kind of audience before. And then I was introduced to them all with these thousands of comments from, people clutching pearls.
Yeah, what a lovely way to meet them.
It was beautiful. It was a lovely introduction.
Sweet.
And just... it was hilarious. Like it was just, it was this user base that I didn't know about basically because I live in a fairly sheltered world. Most of my friends either work in the theatre or in the sex industry. So everyone's pretty fucking chill.
Yeah.
So to suddenly be, to have my face and my words put in front of these mothers from Southern America, like it was
That's
wild.
what I was going to mention is that, having had to scroll through the comments myself, and I even mentioned it to you at the time, was that it was very obvious to me, having a look at a lot of the profiles that were negative, that they were from regions of America, which was interesting because it was a BuzzFeed Australia video. But a lot of the comments were skewed from America, which I suppose you tend to see very strongly different or differing views on sex work than you do from a lot of Australians. Obviously, there's going to be, different groups within different countries, but I suppose because of the legalisation of Australian or sex work within Australia, that it tends to be a lot more progressive, whereas in the US, because of their laws, there does seem to be a lot more, as we call it, whorephobia, a lot more fear and shame involved with this industry. And, a lot of people were really coming for you guys in those comments in a variety of different ways, and it was eye-opening, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was really intense. I mean, I loved it because I quite enjoy playing with the trolls.
Yeah, you do love the trolls.
I know.
You do.
I do. I love them. And I've got a few pet trolls that I keep around and they pop up every now and then. I'm like, oh, honey. Oh, here we go again. Like I'm quite a fan of them. But anyway, so the point is I was reacting to all these comments. I was responding to all of them because not many people are in a position to be able to respond under their name and their face. And I am, so I do. And then it was just there were so many of them that I was like, I'm going to do like a reaction video because I love, those like celebrities read mean tweets videos.
Them.
I love those things.
Yeah.
I love people reading awful shit said about them. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm into it.
Well, it breaks down the fear of it, the anger of it, doesn't it? It just
you're
ridicules
right. It does.
It's great.
Yeah, you're spot on. There you go. Nailed it.
Yeah.
So I decided to do a live Twitter video where I was reacting to all of these comments in live time, real time. That's what live is. I don't know why I just explained to you guys what live is, but there we go. So then that's where Holly comes into the story.
It's me. So I received an inquiry somewhere around that time from a lovely gentleman called Darren, which may or may not be his real name. Hint, it's not.
Obviously isn't.
It's definitely not. He asked me if I do femdom, which is basically dominatrix style or light, dominatrix style activities. I'm definitely not a dominatrix. That is a whole other topic. We should get one on our show one day.
Yes, we should.
They are absolutely fascinating individuals, people who work in that side of the industry. I am definitely not trained to that standard, but sometimes I will happily, inflict some fear onto someone if that's what they really want. So this individual...
And boy, do they want it. Boy, is there a market for it.
There really is. And
yes.
I remember my first one. We'll talk about all that sort of stuff one day, but it took me a lot to hype myself up to it. So it takes a lot of mental fortitude to be mean to someone because naturally I don't think a lot of sex workers are... No, I think generally sex workers are very compassionate people. So to make someone or to exert power over somebody is a big thing. So Darren got in touch. He asked if he could be a footstool for the duration of a session of 2 hours. And during that time, I would watch TV or read a book or something, which sounded wonderful to me. Didn't believe he was legit at first, but he came through. He was legit and actually an absolutely wonderful guy, really likable person. But he didn't want to be spoken to for the whole session. That was basically the gist of it. He
And had you done anything like that before?
Not that. Definitely not footstool. I have never had a human piece of furniture before. I have had, slaves, which is another type of sort of light dom thing where they basically serve you and do housework for you and things like that. All another thing to discuss, in another show. But, this was my first piece of human furniture, as he calls himself, which was really cool. These are always really fascinating bookings. Obviously, we love the GFE thing. I love to do a girlfriend experience. I'm a naturally super affectionate person, but I also like when someone comes in and throws me something totally left field.
Oh, and the variety is one of the best things of our job.
Absolutely.
That's one of my favourite parts of it.
It was really, really exciting to say this is going to be something I've never done before and give it a shot. I think he had a great time. So on the day I was getting ready, doing my makeup, and I noticed that Jenna had her live reactions coming up, and so I put that on in the background while I was doing my makeup and continued to play it. Then Darren turned up, and I thought, I better put it away, and I thought, no, he really wants me to be entertained and do something that I'm amused by while he's here. So I kept the live going in the background and used him as a footstool while I giggled away at Jenna's reactions, which were actually hilarious. And he just had to sit there and act totally unamused while I was laughing at Jenna's video. So that was really cool. So
and how long was that booking for?
That was 2 hours. And I think he was happy and I was certainly very happy. I had a great time. Then I heard from him. Then I think you were coming to do a tour a few months later, and I heard from him to ask whether he could do that with both of us, basically. I think he must have been quite enamoured or intrigued by you and certainly by
my voice.
By your voice, he was there,
that's interesting.
Focused on being furniture for my feet, and he heard your voice and thought, she sounds like a woman I want to be a footstool for, which was, I could see the temptation. And so he asked whether he could, be a footstool for both of us and serve us drinks for an afternoon. And what was your thoughts when I asked you about it, Jenna?
I did. Well, so Holly contacted me and said, look, I know this isn't the sort of thing you normally do, and I'm far less of a dom than even Holly is, and Holly isn't a dom. It's very, very rare for me to do any kind of dominant services, and when I do, it's only ever with people, with regulars and people I'm really comfortable with. So, but what she described, she was like, there's a power play involved, but he literally just wants to be a footstool. And I think, I don't know if I knew what this sounds ridiculous, but I don't know if I knew what a footstool was, because
oh my gosh,
I don't know, I don't have one. I don't think I've ever had. I kind of Googled it and was like, what? I don't know. I just wasn't familiar with that particular piece
very
of furniture.
Endearing. I mean, it seems self-explanatory. I'm not going to pick on you, but
look, it does. Okay, I'll give you that.
Sorry.
But okay. I couldn't get a picture of it in my head. And then I looked at a picture and I was like, yes, it is. It's what it says on the box. Cool. But I was like, well, I know I'm not a dom, but I mean, sure. Are you sure? Is that we literally just sit there and put our feet up?
That's how I felt when I heard from him. I thought, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much detail we want to go into on this podcast, but I said to him, do you want any release at the end of it? And he said to me, no, not at all. I don't want you to touch me at all, basically. And I thought, okay, unusual. And then I met him and I really wanted to because I wasn't allowed to. I thought,
the temptation.
The fact that I wasn't allowed to, suddenly I wanted to touch.
Of course, So, I was a bit like, I don't know. It sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
But then I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed myself. And I think a big part of that was because you were there. If I was on my own, I think I would have struggled a little bit.
Really?
And
that's
Holly, you were helping me too.
Because
I was saying, sorry. And you were like, don't say sorry.
We don't apologise to furniture. No.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah, Holly was really talking me through it, which was very, very helpful. Because as she said, it's putting yourself in that mindset is something that not everyone's able to do, and not everyone's kind of got the experience to do. So
that's why
that was definitely a bit of a journey for me.
I have so much admiration for proper DOMs.
Yes.
It's a whole mindset, the mental. I don't think people realise how much goes into it. So I've got all the admiration for them. So. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It was, I did.
Yeah.
It was, and essentially this was 90 minutes of the two of us sitting on a couch with our feet up, of course.
Yep.
There was a little bit of instruction about where we might put our feet, and
he selected
sort of rub them into his face occasionally. The footwear.
He was quite specific in what he wanted with that. But
essentially we were just sitting there chatting.
Yes.
And my God, did we have a good time.
Laughing. We were cackling. We were having a good old laugh.
Cackling.
And I think we discussed beforehand that we were both a little bit concerned about whether we'd be able to talk organically with him there, or whether we'd feel like, stilted and uncomfortable. But time flew and we had a great time. Before you knew it, we were like, oh God, time's up. Yeah.
And then afterwards so we had a quick chat with him at the end, which, I mean, he's as Holly has said, he was really lovely and I wanted to chat more to him, but our time was up.
Super interesting
And he talked about saying, very interesting, but he mentioned that it was really difficult for him to sort of not laugh and to keep a straight face and not get too involved in our conversation.
Yeah.
Which made us go, oh, maybe it wasn't just us that was
entertained
interested in what we had to say. And I don't know about you, Holly. I imagine you've had this before as well, but I'm constantly having people say to me that I should start a podcast, or, oh, have you ever thought about doing a podcast, Jenna? Or
I've never had it. People never want to hear me
you
talk.
haven't?
No, never, ever. I think he said it at the end of that booking. He said something about it. And that was the first time I've ever even crossed. So,
well, I like hearing you talk. So that's
very kind of you. You'd be one of few. But I know you're wonderfully well-spoken and you've done a lot of media stuff. And I think people obviously love to hear
speaking
from you. And it's something comes to you naturally.
I do speak a lot. That is something that, speaking
good at it.
And sleeping. Two top
I love
skills.
those things, and sex.
But I've always said no, and sex. Sleeping, speaking, and sexing. The 3 S's.
We are so good.
But I've always said no to it, because just the thought of taking on yet another project, having something that you have to create and deliver on a schedule, all of that, and having people kind of demanding, I guess, more of my time and more of my whatever, was just really kind of overwhelming and sounded really draining. But then you and I had this booking together in, I think was maybe November last year, more than 6 months ago. And suddenly it just clicked for me and I went, this is something I want to do. I want to start a podcast with this person. I want to talk to this person regularly and have people listen to it.
That is a massive
felt
compliment.
Organic.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. No works. It made sense, and I'm somebody I'm very driven by my gut, and if something makes sense, I just want to do it. So I was like, babe, can we do it?
I think, look, if you hadn't asked me, I think if other people had suggested to me this idea, I would have gone, oh, that's a lot. What people might not know about Jenna is that she's a sucker for punishment. So if there is more she can take on than she really needs to, she does. And so she's just...
Don't, my psychologist might be listening.
This obviously was something that she was really into, and I sort of went, well, okay. And then she just ran with it, and I'm sort of just, scrambling to keep up with Jenna's level of commitment. And no, she's so good at this sort of thing. So, here
the
we
Love
are.
Fest is disgusting. I'm going to vomit.
But yeah, so that's sort of how we ended up here, and it seems like we're going okay.
That's our
apart
little
from
story.
A few technical difficulties, and
of course. Of course.
We're getting there.
It's essential. And I think, if anything, Darren will probably listen.
I hope Darren listens.
So I think we have one audience member.
Maybe one day we'll get him on the show.
Oh my God, that would be wonderful.
Wouldn't it? No pressure.
No pressure, but that would be very cool. I think he's got interesting things to say.
He does.
Let's put that on the back burner. So let's move on to misconceptions, shall we?
Now onto a segment we call Misconceptions. Very creative title there. Basically exploring the misconceptions that, the general public or that we had about the industry before we started, and breaking them down a little bit and exploring those. So today Jenna's got our topic our misconception topic of the...
We need to come up with like a catchy name. If anyone has suggestions for a catchy name, throw it at us. But in the meantime, we shall call it Misconceptions. Misconceptions.
Oh, I like a song.
There you go. I've got a jingle.
Yeah.
Great. So the misconception today, and this is something that I actually overheard an acquaintance of mine saying not that long ago, and I was really taken aback by, even though it's a common misconception, I was really surprised to hear someone young and someone that I know saying it, which was what he said was that you don't kiss sex workers. And I've heard it said as both you don't kiss sex workers and you don't go down on sex workers. So I was really surprised because from my perspective, that is very incorrect.
Yeah, definitely. That's not how it works in the industry. Obviously, look, there are some sex workers who don't allow kissing or cunnilingus or any variety of things. That's your right within the industry to determine your own boundaries and what you're comfortable with. There are people who charge extra for certain services. But for the most part, if you're hiring an independent full-service sex worker, kissing is pretty standard across the board.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable to say.
Generally.
Definitely not for everyone, but I think that's pretty standard and fairly expected from the client perspective, I think.
Yeah.
And to me, thinking that doesn't happen shows a real fundamental misunderstanding of why people visit sex workers, the intimacy needs of humans, and really the point of our job and what it is that we do. Because I think that suggesting that you go to a sex worker and you don't kiss them or go down on them or give them pleasure in any way sort of suggests that the purpose for going to a sex worker is just for you to have an orgasm and that's it.
Absolutely.
And you often hear, I know a few times, I've spoken to the media a couple of times and they often throw in this question which they're weirdly obsessed with, which is, are you afraid of like robot brothels taking away the jobs of sex workers, basically? Because I know in a couple of countries they've got
sex
robot brothels as a novelty. And great, bloody awesome. One day I'll do one of those for sure. But no, I have absolutely no fear about that because people don't go to see a human being. They don't spend hundreds of dollars an hour to be with a human being so that they can have an orgasm.
Yeah.
They spend that money and that time and that energy and effort because they are looking for intimacy, they're looking for a human connection, they're looking for touch, they're looking to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel desired. So as much as for some people that doesn't involve kissing or cunnilingus, and that's cool, but for a lot of people, what they're looking for is connecting with another person, and kissing is a huge part of that. So to me,
vast proportion of clients, that's what I feel like they're looking for. And I feel like, obviously there's clients who do just want the wham bam in and out and fine, whatever. That's totally, not a problem. But, time-wise in a booking, sex is X amount and the rest of it is really connecting and talking and touching and kissing. And that's, having that human connection and feeling that something deeper, It's not like we're, any sort of therapist or any sort of anything like that, but just feeling that innate need that we all have to connect. And kissing is huge of that for a lot of people. In brothels, a lot of the time a standard service is very, very basic and it doesn't include kissing. And kissing is something that independently then the workers within the brothel can charge extra for. So it is something that most people see as most clients tend to see as a desirable commodity within the industry, not something that they try to avoid at all.
And that's something that I got no information when I worked in brothels, and no one told me that I should be charging extra for something like that. Yeah. I just thought everyone else was making out with their clients, and apparently I could have been upselling.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's one of the reasons I don't want to work there.
Yeah.
We're just that is so foreign to me.
Yeah.
It is. I do have the occasional client who doesn't want to kiss. But it feels really weird. I'm like, oh, your dick's in me and we're not kissing. It feels weird. I find it really difficult to really connect with somebody when we're just like keeping our faces away from each other.
I love to pash. So particularly with clients, not not being supposed to kiss them in a brothel was very strange. It was like, very strange. The other thing that's a really disturbing thing about that misconception, which, we try not to obviously get offended by these sorts of things. It's just part of this industry is that people do have their beliefs that we just try to challenge daily. But the vibe behind this one you get is that people think that we're diseased or that we're gross, and that's why you don't want to kiss us. And that's really not the way things work. And it's that's quite a detrimental part of that assumption, which is really disappointing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is that where laws work in the sex workers' favour, where we have decriminalisation and to a lesser extent legalisation, sex workers have consistently lower rates of STI transmission than the general public.
Yeah.
So if anything, we're not the ones you've got to be worried about kissing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really disappointing part of that.
Yeah.
But, I guess then part of what we do is in our interactions with the public, we try to pull apart those, misconceptions.
Have you got a dog giving you a bit of a hard time there?
Excuse the French.
Look, it's my favourite part about podcasts when I hear little pets in the background.
I'm struggling.
So I'm personally hoping for that.
He thinks it's time to go for a walk and he's losing his mind. Yep. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I'm sorry, Hamish. For me personally, I actually, this is just such a laughable misconception because now, not everyone listening will know this about me, but I'm a big squirter. And that is something that I get a lot of clients coming to me. Yes, you can attest to that, I'm sure. You have been in the splash zone.
I have been in the splash
zone
a few times. It's very cool. Yeah.
But, I get clients who literally don't know anything about me. They just read that I was a squirter and they come to me for that purpose.
Oh, wow.
Probably not so much these days, but when I was first starting out, I used to get that a lot.
Wow, that's very cool.
And I was like, all right, well, I'm happy to oblige. But yeah, so a lot of the clients that I particularly attract are people who really get off on seeing a woman orgasm, who get off on seeing a woman squirt, who really, really want to experience me experiencing pleasure. So it's not unusual at all for me to have bookings that are 90% of the time the guy going down on me and or fingering and all that sort of stuff. Or and to the point where sometimes it really just gets too much for me.
Yeah.
And there have been periods of my life where I've asked my personal partners not to go down on me because it feels like work.
Yeah.
Because that actually which is, I know
been
it sounds
overdone,
Yeah, it has. And me laying there and receiving pleasure is just something that is such a huge part of my work.
Yeah.
That sometimes in my private life, I'm like, oh, can we just fuck?
Yes.
I just want to have a normal
Yes.
sex. I don't want someone to sit there and go down on me and make sure I'm pleasured until my eyes feel like they're going to pop out.
Yeah.
So the fact that people go, oh, well, people don't go down on sex workers. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Goodness.
I can't stop them from going down on me. They're
Absolutely.
obsessed with going down on me.
Particularly,
which is probably not the case for everyone.
No.
But particularly in my case, that's a big one.
I have heard those views reflected elsewhere in the industry.
Right.
I have heard, other workers say that, that they've found a lot of people just want to go down on them this week and they're, exhausted from that. So particularly in your instance where you offer a really interesting side effect of that, which is the squirting. And
Side effects may include.
It is. It's a really exciting and fascinating thing for a lot of clients. But I have heard it reflected with other workers in the industry. And, it's not that people don't enjoy it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. It's not like I don't want to be. Exactly, of course.
Yes. But sometimes the human body just goes, that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah. So, it's just funny, this idea that no one would ever want to give us pleasure when that is such a big part of our job.
It's wonderful. I mean, it's a great part of our job.
Yeah, it is.
Our clients do want us to have a nice time and they don't want to treat us like a sex doll where they just throw us down and, have their way. They want us to have an interactive, mutually pleasurable experience, and often it is. And it's a real connection thing, like you said, and that's really special. So total misconception, myth busted, done.
Debunked.
Now, because this podcast was birthed in Jenna's responses to hate comments, we thought it'd be fun to have a segment each episode where we highlight shit that people say. Because as I'm sure you're aware that if you have any kind of online presence as a woman, you will have horrible things said to you.
Absolutely. And if you add to that being a sex worker, the vitriol only gets worse. God forbid if on top of that you also happen to be not slim or you have a bit of a tummy.
Get the pitchforks.
And if you happen... Oh, the pitchforks,
Get the
of course.
pitchforks out.
Fat women. Can't have them on the internet.
Yep.
And if you happen to have the absolute audacity to pretend to be happy and or confident, I mean, you basically may as well get prepared for regular death threats.
That's it. End your career. Leave. Retire.
And get off my internet face.
Off my internet, internet face,
we come across a lot of, as we mentioned before, a lot of trolls and not even trolls, people that just really want us to feel awful. Well, I guess that's what a troll
just
kind of is.
bitter people.
But a lot of the time, just awful people.
Jenna's
which
got
I
some
find
good content
absolutely
this week of that.
Fascinating. Oh, I do. So, I thought I'd share a little conversation that happened on Twitter, which I found very entertaining. So I posted a picture. I don't even know what it was, a mirror selfie,
it was
probably.
Just a gorgeous picture,
some
as
basic
always.
bitch thing. Of course it was gorgeous, but, just a basic-ass picture of my body. And this guy commented, "How much to clothe you? Warning, close your eyes. Wide load on display. Horrid lack of exercise."
That's my favourite bit.
He's not wrong. There is a horrid lack of exercise. It's horrid. It is absolutely horrid, but it's not going to change. So I've accepted it. You need to as well, buddy.
Hard relate here.
Yeah. And I shared that and I said to everyone, warning, because I thought it was hilarious that he was like, warning, wide load on display. Like I was expecting a reversing truck sound, meep, 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 fat chick. And so he said, warning, I'm a woman whose body doesn't fit this particular man's standard of attractiveness. Avert your eyes, lest they burn at the sight of such imperfection. And then I added, and by the way, clothing me will cost $500. I have so much body mass to cover after all.
Yeah, he asked.
A slim person you could clothe at a cheaper rate.
Definitely.
But, because of my wide load, so much fabric that it's just going to cost hundreds of dollars.
It's a lot.
And I linked my Beamit, which if there's anyone here who isn't Australian, Beamit is like Australia's version of Venmo, just an online payment platform. And I will point out that this was over at least a week ago and I have not received that money yet.
Yeah. He can't be too traumatised by your wide load.
Can't be too traumatised. Yeah. So he responded with, words are the fingers that mould the mind of men.
What does that
mean? And I don't even know. I don't know, but it's wild.
It's provocative.
It's out there. It is, isn't it? The imagery is strong.
Yeah.
I hope glasses that shrink the lard on your bones are on the market soon. I mean, me too. That sounds fucking excellent. Life sure needs them.
Invest.
Especially large people like yourself can look half the size. So yeah, if there is anyone out there making glasses that literally will shrink the lard off my bones, hit me up.
Yeah, take my money.
Because I'm here for the investment opportunity.
100%.
Absolutely. And then, that's right, then I went and looked and saw that he was following me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, honey. So I said, someone needs to tell this man that he can unfollow me. My fat existence seems to be really upsetting him for some reason. Like, the poor thing. He can just hit unfollow and then he won't have to deal with it anymore,
I don't know what they expect from this. Like, obviously, like, part of it is I just want my words to hurt you. But, like, I don't know whether he expects you to see this post and go, oh, I'm fat. I didn't know. I don't know mirrors.
I had no idea.
I didn't realise I wasn't a size 6. Like, off I go. Shit. Better buy a treadmill. Yep. I'm not sure what the reaction is.
No, just get a knife and slop
just
it
cut
off.
It off. Yeah, what is this immediate reaction that he expects? Just like, right now.
He has given me some advice, of course.
Well, thank you. God, lucky.
Of course.
Yeah.
Here we go. So he said, in life you get choices. You obviously made your choice. Many spoonfuls a long time ago. And correct. Yes. I have had many, many spoonfuls over my lifetime. And it has been such a good choice. And then in all caps, make the appointment for a health advice assessment. Obesity shortens your life all too soon, which sounds like a disclaimer at the end of one of those like medical ads.
Yeah. What would you do
Authorised
without
by the
his
Australian
advice?
Government, Canberra.
Yes,
I don't know.
brilliant.
And like, I love this obesity shortens your life.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but I don't know if it shortens my life as much as being a fucking asshole does.
Absolutely. That level of vitriol
Like, if you
is going to
wanna-
be doing his heart,
Yeah.
his blood pressure, some
Massively.
damage. Yeah.
And at the very least, he's inviting a good punch to the head.
Yeah, I mean, that's danger.
So that is danger.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolute danger.
yeah.
So a bunch of people jumped in. I wouldn't say to defend me because I think everybody knew that I wasn't. I certainly
weren't
wasn't upset by his
traumatised,
words. I
no.
weren't sitting there going, "Oh no, I'm fat."
Yeah.
I just thought it was very entertaining. But people jumped in to to join in the anti-trolling, which is really lovely of them. And Leo, who is a Melbourne sex worker, Melbourne-based, I should say, says, I'm late to the convo and I have a feeling that you're a troll, which is amusing because this person is actually an actual client
Supposedly?
of sex workers. So
Really? Wow.
Apparently
wow.
actually has seen
Imagine
people.
that.
So not actually a troll, not a troll in the truest sense,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. That he actually has
Yeah.
booked people. Wow. Fascinating.
So that's horrifying.
So Leo's jumped
Very
in.
glad
Leo
that he
seems like a
hates the
lovely
idea of
guy.
me. Leo seems really lovely.
Yeah, he does seem
If
good.
everything goes well, COVID pending, I will be meeting him in a couple of weeks. I look forward to
Yeah.
that. Anyway, so Leo said, on the off chance that you are being legit, this is childish and disgusting behaviour from a grown man, which is spot on. And he responded back with, Leo, I'm sorry to offend your way of thinking, which, okay, but I'm in charge of my thoughts, correct?
You are.
I think as a professional in any profession, quality is important. Rejects are sold in the bins at the back of the shop. What the fuck? I was like, this is a whole new level. I'm literally, he wants me in the reject bin.
Hi,
Like,
I'm a human
whoa.
being. Like, thanks.
Actually am a human being.
Yeah.
Wild. And I thought, well, first of all, okay, so I'll go at the reject prices. That's fine. You don't have to buy the rejects, babe. Like, it's all good. There are always people who will. Everyone loves a bargain bin discount.
Why would you follow
but the
someone
other
that you
thing
find so repulsive? I just don't get it.
That you think is literally a
reject.
reject of a human being.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And then the other thing is, and it's this, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm regularly booked out. I often have waiting lists.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think that
doesn't fit reject.
I'm not going in the bargain bin.
No, you're doing
That's-
fine. Thanks. Like,
Yeah, I said to him, like, don't go into retail, babe, because you don't have your finger on the pulse.
No.
Like, you make terrible decisions.
Yeah.
And then I've got one more screenshot that I'm reading out from this. There was plenty more, of course. But Misha Maxwell, who's another person I haven't met, who seems really lovely.
yeah.
So he said something on someone's post about, oh, you're lovely and the other women aren't as kind as you or some shit. And she said, mate, maybe other ladies aren't as kind to you because they can see how rude you are to women online.
Yes.
Like what you said to Jenna, for example.
100%.
And his response was, give us a break. Oh, poor thing. I only know quality. I can't say it. I'm a sports attic. If you cannot present well, get out of the game. And now, like, there are all sorts of reasons why somebody might use the incorrect word. English may not be their first language. It might be autocorrect. Who knows? But when somebody's being an absolute fucking asshole, I'm going to come at them for that. And I'm a sports attic. Instead of addict was presumably the word he was going for. And Misha responded something like, yes, I can see that you've come from the attic. And I think you should, go back there. And I'm a sports attic. He is an attic.
Yeah.
He's like just full of old baseballs.
Yeah,
and,
he's
and
definitely
whatever.
coming
I
from
don't
the
know.
attic.
I don't know anything about sport, which is because horrid lack of exercise.
The lack of
So
exercise. It loops around. Yeah, it's a perfect circle.
it loops around. We
Yeah.
all come back to the beginning,
Yeah.
and he was right.
Yeah, well.
So, what a joy that was. That was a good day
yeah.
for me.
To know that would make him sleep well at night. He'd feel really good knowing that he was right.
I think he would. Yeah. He's done a good thing, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, good man. Curing obesity, one
Yeah.
random chick on the internet at a time. Good on him. So I think that brings us to the end. I think we've talked shit long enough.
Wow, there we go. That's our first episode of many.
Yeah, we did it.
Of many, hundreds.
Of many.
We'll look back on this day and we'll be nostalgic.
Yeah, right. Aiming high.
Cool. Definitely. Okay, well, thanks for listening, everyone. Just a reminder that we do have our Patreon. We have our Twitter account, Instagram. That will be linked somewhere for you.
Yeah, in the show notes.
In the show notes, yep. We'll be looking for feedback from you guys. We'll have a few questions to, gather some opinions for our next show.
Yeah.
And,
we'd love to know what you'd like to hear and...
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll be looking for some involvement from you.
And thanks for joining us here on the first show and, keeping us company. Love you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the voices of sex workers. Please look out for us on Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. Our name everywhere is Somebody You Pod, as in podcast, and our Patreon starts at just $3 a month. And remember, somebody you love might just be a sex worker.